Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we'll begin the first session with the recitation of Sheikh Mabrur.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا. هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما. ليدخل المؤمنين والمؤمنات جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها ويكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وكان ذلك عند الله فوزا عظيما. ويعذب المنافقين والمنافقات والمشركين والمشركات الظانين بالله ظن السوء عليهم دائرة السوء وغضب الله عليهم ولعنهم وأعد لهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. ولله جنود السماوات والأرض ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عزيزا حكيما. إنا أرسلناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا. صدق الله العظيم. الله يحفظكم. سلامكم. بارك الله فيكم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan. Before we begin, I wanted to make sure that we go ahead and review the rules of our gathering and the way we're going to be interacting, inshallah ta'ala. First and foremost, questions after the presentations will only be taken from the microphones in the room. Nowhere else, none from seated places, okay? So if you have a question, you have to queue up, first and foremost. Second, the speakers will be given a certain amount of time after which they'll stop. Questions at the microphones, again, at the microphones, will be limited to 90 seconds, 1 minute, 30 seconds. And we will very strictly enforce that. So 90 seconds, keep it brief. The responses from our esteemed scholars will be 2 to 4 minutes. You'll be seeing this light changing color throughout the time. When it's green, means go. When you see it turn yellow, Hurry up and finish. When it turns red, sit down. Are we clear? واضح؟ طيب. First, to share with us his research, inshallah, we have Dr. Zuhaili.
I cannot begin the lecture without asking first the Qari, why did he begin Surah Al-Fatih? I pray that Allah permits a Fatih for Islam and the Muslims that are near. I ask Allah to bless these gatherings of yours and remind you that the Prophet ﷺ said that the scholars are the inheritors of the prophets. May our gathering be one of great benefit, and Allah opens the hearts of the people of America to the beauty of Islam. As you know, this entire lecture is about Al-Fatwa.
أيها الإخوة تقوم على مقدمة تربطها بالعلوم الشرعية
Fatwa need to begin from a foundation that ties it with the science of Islamic law. And of course, if there are questions, we can do them at a later time, but we're only going to be able to cover bullet points, headers. When our Prophet ﷺ said, seeking knowledge is an obligation of every Muslim. Of course, knowing the Sharia at last details, this is a communal obligation on every Muslim. Whereas seeking knowledge being a duty and obligation, this happens on an individual level. For every person's individual worship and their individual domains in life, specializations, works, careers.
وبيان الأحكام في الحياة وهي إحدى المناصب الإسلامية الجليلة.
Of course, giving fatwa is one of the loftiest stations in the universe, in reality, speaking on behalf of Allah, and in the Islamic sciences in particular. Because when you're asking a Mufti, you're not asking about his personal opinion, his taste on an issue. You're asking about what is the take or the opinion of the Lord of the worlds on the issue. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah wrote his book A'lam al-Muwaqqi'in, say that the Mufti is the medium of law of information between the Lord of might and His creation.
المفتي أحد أركان الفتوى وهو العمدة الأساسية فيها وركن الزاوية وقطب الرحل التي تدور حوله ولذلك كان محط أنظار العلماء والفقهاء لبيان أهليته وتحقيق.
And of course, the most important or most sensitive aspect of fatwa is the Mufti himself, because he's the one who basically directs the route of the conversation, the ability to disseminate these rulings. This lecture is talking about that qualification of the Mufti, and on the opposite end, the mayhem, the fatwa mayhem that exists in our contemporary times. Yeah, these are things that many of you should know, and we're just reminding of it. But the bigger gist of the conversation in this lecture will speak about the fawda, the chaos that happens in the world of fatwa in contemporary times, in our present times. So the Mufti is the expert on Islamic law, and not the expert in linguistics, not Islamic history. No, the faqih, the expert on the practical rulings, the rulings related to practice. And so his job is to clarify for people, point out for people the rules of fiqh. And that's why one of the largest challenges that threaten fatwa, proper fatwa, is that when the mufti, the person giving the fatwa, is not a faqih, is not someone who's grounded in fiqh. The scholars of usul fiqh, they say the mufti is someone who is the mujtahid, someone who has the ability to exert an effort towards arriving at a ruling. So the mujtahid is someone who can extrapolate. That's the job of the mufti. So they call him mujtahid, exerting effort toward extrapolating. And the rulings are many, permissible, disliked, recommended. But the two ends of the legal spectrum, which is forbidden, right, and mandatory, these are the two sensitive ones. And so, essentially, the Mufti is someone who needs to clarify on whatever the Quran and Sunnah and the books of fiqh have addressed. This is the first type of fatwa, to clarify what is pre-existing and have always existed and will always exist. The second type of fatwa that he'll give are the fatwa that address newly emerging events with and resolving conflicts of circumstance that have not been addressed explicitly in the Quran or in the Sunnah or by the senior scholars of our past. And then the conditions of the Mufti, our scholars went to great lengths to clarify them. We'll mention it quickly. First one, that he be mature, meaning adult, and someone who is sane, and someone that is trustworthy. And then having knowledge of the Shari'i rulings from their sources, knows where to find them. In order to be specialized, he has to be someone that has gone through these and knows where to find them and where to go back to them. The third is that the Mufti needs to be aware of the situation about which he is speaking. And one of the problems, a person has very particular situations. Give me a fatwa and then the sheikh answers them on satellite or something, and then people think this is a fatwa for the whole world, and this is very reckless.
النوع الثاني من الفتوى أما النوع الأول لا
The
يعرف
traditional one, anyone can be asked about the pre-existing rulings. Anyone can be asked about them. What did the scholars say about this ruling in Salah, prostration and prayer? These exist in the Quran and the Sunnah, and the Fuqaha have already addressed it. There's nothing to be added here, only things to be explored here. Right? A person learns them, and that's it. They're finite. The second one is to actually extrapolate new rulings based on the pre-existing traditions.
والمشاكل الفتوى تتبع الحيل تمسك بالشبهات أشار الدكتور صالح البارقي بعض منها
And of course, with the conditions of a mufti, is to be overly lenient, to seek out odd views that have been abandoned by the ummah over the centuries.
غير موضوعه للترخيص لشخص والتغليظ لآخر الاعتماد على الآراء الشاذة
So, depending on, as Dr. Salah mentioned yesterday, depending on odd views.
للخبراء وللمختصين في المسألة والاعتماد على
Also, the conditions of a mufti is that he has to be ready and willing and regularly visiting the experts that can best inform him about the realities that he is speaking on.
التخصص يجب على المفتي
So, in matters of specialization, even if he's the grand mufti of an entire country, it is still mandatory on him to understand, to ask about issues of medicine, engineering, media, accounting, so that he can be able to address them. This with regard to the mufti. We said these are all exist in the books of fiqh, and that's why we're being so brief and passing through. And passing. This now the issue of the chaos of fatwa, the mayhem of fatwa. I would say, ever since the collapse of the Khilafah and colonization of the Muslim world, in my estimation, in the first years of the 20th century, and 13th and 14th Hijri centuries, we began to see much chaos. From times of Imam Nawawi, rahimahullah, and Abu Yusuf, these things were much more contained. These problems were much more contained. People giving fatwa without do right. And this is, of course, because the world is changing so fast that certainly adds to it. And people are speaking at such high pace. And that's why they say things that do change in a year's time nowadays may have taken 100 years to transpire or to evolve in centuries prior. And so every time something evolves, every time the world changes, the rulings which govern those need to change accordingly, or may need to change accordingly.
وهي غير منضبطة وخارجة عن شروط الفتوى ومضطربة وفيها تحريف للإسلام
And on top of that, also the fatwa that are inconsistent, that are coming and pushed, I guess, broadcasted with high levels of promotion, of marketing, that have nothing to do with Islam, and they're attributed to Islam, and so the people's ability to filter becomes harder and harder.
ظاهرة فوضى الإفتاء في ال100 سنة الأخيرة أولا إن كل ظاهرة اجتماعية لها أسباب متعددة ولا تنحصر في عدد
You know, we need to understand that any phenomena, any social phenomena that happens in a society, it's multi-factor. It doesn't happen for one or two reasons. Life is much more complicated than that.
فوضى المسلمين رجال الإنجليز والفرنسيين
And so the French and the English and Italians all marching into Muslim lands. The head of the Ummah has been decapitated. And outside influences have begun informing their lifestyles. And foreign laws have been instated and stand until now. Most of the Islamic countries now have French civil laws, criminal laws governing them until this very day. where are the Islam rules? These were lost, were purged years and years ago. Another reason is the propelling of sinister views or antagonistic views of Islam, criticisms of Islam, and campaigns against it. And also the reasons are tribalism in terms of ethnicity, and also cultish behavior in terms of even scholarship, fiqh scholarship.
الدول الاستعمارية ومن وراءها يسمى أحدهم عميد الأدب العربي وهو مفسد الأدب العربي
And then personalities that were replacing more trustworthy personalities, like the pioneer of Arabic literature. That's a title that was given to a certain personality in Egypt years ago, and he was a person that had complete denial of the explicit statements of the Quran and the Sunnah, like the existence of Ibrahim alayhi salam and otherwise. And so
المناصب الرفيعة في الدولة والمراكز الحساسة للتوجيه. خامسا وجود وسائل الإعلام المتعددة
and also the commotion of high-paced media and multiple platforms of media that cause people to doubt the qualified fatwa if it were to exist and when it's made available. And so with that, many of the minds of the generations were hijacked, were distorted, were left in idleness. Also the commodification, turning the religion to a commodity. People that feel they can benefit monetarily from the religion, and so they enter it without suitable training. So becoming the Mufti of a nation was a great thing. That people worked so hard. One of the greatest accomplishments a person can have in their worldly career is to become the Grand Mufti. And the Mufti used to be the one who infers and gives opinions on the constitutional courts, how we are to understand law. And nowadays the Mufti is just a leg in the prism or in the nation state to endorse whatever has been decided on behind closed doors and to endorse corruption or distortion of people's religions and laws.
ومنهم أنصاف العلماء وتحيط بهم تحيط بهم عناصر الأمن والموظفين كثير من مفتي الدولة.
And then the infiltration of the Mufti circles with people, with informants and spies and double agents that paint for them a certain picture so that they don't understand what they're talking about, making the Mufti blind and incapable of offering people the beneficial guidance of Allah on their particular situations. And of course, the persecution, and the distancing of sincere, insightful scholars from the mainstream. Also, the absence of there being a systematization of fatwa, people being able to get together. Everyone has a coalition, a firm, a collective body where the experts get together, and so they come out with the best answer, and they're able to best be heard about that answer because they're coming together as one hand.
تعميم الفتاوى الشخصية التي تسمى فتاوى الجماهير والفتاوى على الهواء.
And so between non-qualification, between generalizing a fatwa that was given a specific situation, blind following or extreme adherence to madhahib at the expense of the spirit of Sharia. Also not giving consideration to the changing customs and circumstances of time and place.
كثرة القضايا المشبوهة كثرة الفضائيات المشبوهة ستة تسلط الحكام على الفتوى
to the persecution of governments and
الأمراض
the
شائعة
openness, the
الزلل
open discussions of the online and the satellites world,
الاعتماد على الآراء الشاذة التلفيق
and the wicked scholars who appease the masses or appease
حسب
the rulers.
عن حسرة
And so the solutions,
مختصين شاعة
number one, is to encourage and reiterate that fatwa should only come from the experts, and to call for, to ask for someone giving an unfounded opinion to be accountable for that. The same way someone who gives a medical opinion without qualification is accountable. Those that don't give fatwa need to also feel that pressure.
مراقبة الفتاوى والتنسيق بين رجال الفتوى
And coordination between the people of fatwa.
رسمية من الدولة المستقلة نعم مثل القضاء سلطة في الدولة
Saying, and just like judgeship, there is a part of the state that has some sort of autonomy.
على سيدنا محمد
And we'll stop there, inshallah. Peace and blessings of Allah upon His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
عن رؤوس أقلام بارك الله فيكم
جزاك الله خير. الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Barakallahu feek wa Dr. Zubaili. Inshallah, now we'll be hearing from the second researcher, who will be Dr. Abu Saif. Tafadhal.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. وبعد من عظيم الشرف لي أن أمثل بين أيديكم حفظكم
It is an honor for me to present to you, and let me please with you, and set your tongues and your hearts and your feet right wherever you go. And between Dr. Khathan and Dr. Zuhaili, it's a great favor on me that I can sit among them. And we ask Allah, make us of those who are mannerful with our scholars and are grateful for our favors.
حفظه الله تعالى في بداية كلمته
The doctor mentioned at the beginning of his words
هذه الوجوه فقد
that
التمس
a person feels
عقولهم هذه البلاد في أمريكا
great deal of optimism in these lands to see all these beautiful places come together for their betterment.
الناس إذا ساروا في
I
مسارات
say,
مختلفة إما أن يتباعدوا وإما أن يتصادموا ولا بد ليسيروا متوازيين أن يكونوا في اتجاهات متوازية ومن ثم فلعل في ذلك إشارة إلى أن الفوضى التي يعيشها
many of
كثير من العاملين في
the
المجتمع الإسلامي أو المؤسسة
the
الإسلامية
issues that we see in Islamic work,
بوجودنا اليوم وسبب
this is of the reasons why we come together to be able to harmonize our works and ask Allah, we ask Allah to help us with that.
مكلف
The
بأن
moment this text, I was given the task to present some of these papers
وأيضا
or these pages that were submitted or parts of the paper that was submitted. What Dr. Muhammad Khatsanani presented, the fiqh of fitwa, its status and its conditions.
مرتبط بين البحثين وأسأل الله تعالى العون على ذلك يا رب
And I ask Allah to help him.
غني عن التعليم
Dr. Khatani, everyone knows him, he needs no introduction, so we ask Allah to bless him in what he has given him of goodness. To begin, every research
يشير مسماه إلى دلالة مضامينه ومن ثم في مناهج البحث
in research methodology,
يقدم الباحث بين
they say that the researcher should
في مفردات عنوان
define his title or his heading.
أنها لفظ مشتق من البيان والإيضاح والتعبير عن المراد أو الإبداء بالرأي في جواب
And so fatwa is to disclose information or to unearth subtleties
أراد منها بيان الرأي وإيضاحه للمستفتي مع قوته ورجاحته
and why it is strong. And that's why futuwa, which is the strength of young age, right, has the same word futuwa because of their common linguistic root.
وأما المفتي ذلك الذي عرفه
So, Imam Shatibi rahimahullah, when he spoke about the Mufti, he said he is the one who stands in this ummah in place of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam to protect the legal rulings that were set by the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam,
وضعها في موطنها الذي يناسبها في
and it being
تفضل الدكتور
situated in its intended places. Dr. Muhammad Qatanani said,
الفتوى بين الناس
it is the person who gives the fatwa between people and allows them to serve Allah correctly
ودنياه.
in the issues of their religious practice and their worldly affairs.
الكلمة إذا ثمة فروق أو فرق بين المفتي والمجتهد
And so there are a bit of difference between a mufti and a mujtahid.
فيفتي فيها
And so a mufti speaks of a particular situation,
أو يستخرج من النص
whereas the mujtahid is the one who extrapolates from the text that which he understands from it.
وقيل في الفروق بين
And of the differences, they say between the difference between the mujtahid and the mufti,
إخبار بحكم الشيء
and the mufti
بالفعل
speaks about an issue that has happened. As for the mujtahid,
قد حدثت أو لم تحدث
this could be a theoretical, hypothetical, or has not yet happened,
فالإفتاء
but is expected to happen. And so if the fatwa speaks about the reality in front of us, and ijtihad speaks about the expected occurrences or happenings.
ما تم التوصل إليه من خلال الاجتهاد وبين ما هو
But they, of course,
حياة الناس
the fatwa is not disconnected from ijtihad because it uses the ijtihad that is done to apply that in a particular
حكم القاضي
case.
تعالى فيكم ملزم لمن تحاكم إليه ينفذ حكمه
And the mufti, as you know, is not like the qadi, not like the judge. The judge is to effect or enforce the ruling that he sees to be correct on those that have been presented before him in the case, in the judgment. Whereas the mufti, he shares with them what he believes is the view of God, the pleasure of God in their situation.
قول ينفذ إذ وإنما
Not necessarily something that he can enforce on people to adopt.
المفتي وعليه فالفتوى أعم من القضاء.
And so fatwa is wider than qada, judicial proceedings.
تعريف آخر هو
Another definition, another issue of al-ahliyya, the definition of things. So ahliyya
التصرف بمعنى صلاحية الشخص
means someone who is
التصرف في شيء.
qualified,
فأهلية الإنسان
meaning capable of getting what is sought of him done in a manner that is befitting
ذلك محل
and fulfilling of the need. And as for the fawda, the fawda, the word fawda in Arabic could mean the inconsistency or the conflict or the deficiency. And so, for example, when we see those entering the Islamic sciences are not those that have no background in it, it causes a great deficiency.
فوضى في داخل من تخصصوا في
And when we see, for example, conflict between those who are qualified in the Islamic sciences, but other ulterior motives compromise their mission, we saw chaos.
المفتي
So inconsistency or deficiency are what the word fawda entails.
أسأل الله تعالى أن يلحقنا بهم يا رب العالمين.
Read some of the great statements of the great scholars that we ask Allah to reunite us with them on this issue.
هذه شروط ما ورد عن الإمام
It said that Shafi'i rahimahullah said regarding this issue, it is not permissible for anyone to give fatwa on Allah's religion except someone who knows the book of Allah,
ومنسوخه
what has been abrogated, what has not, what is decisive and what is speculative, what is from Mecca and what is Medina,
فيما أنزل
what was intended by it and regarding what it was revealed, and then having insight regarding the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what has been aggravated of them,
ما عرف من القرآن
and understand about them what he should have understood about the Quran, and to be someone who is grounded in the Arabic language and poetry, to be able to have full comprehension of people, what Allah is saying as Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those people,
طريحة بعد هذا
and also to have some awareness of what happens at various lands,
يفتي في الحلال والحرام
so that it may be more likely that he can speak on halal and haram. Otherwise, he cannot speak in knowledge at all or give fatwa. Ibn Sunani, rahimahullah, he said, a mufti has three conditions:
العدالة
the ability to make the ijtihad, the trustworthiness, and to have piety.
يمكننا القول بأن هذه الشروط على ثلاثة أنواع. أشار شيخنا حفظه الله تعالى إلى الشروط التكليفية التي يؤسسها الإسلام والبلوغ.
Of course, taklif, someone to be mukallaf, legally accountable, being an adult, sane Muslim, and of the intellectual conditions, he has to be a person of ijtihad.
علم بأدلة الأحكام الشرعية
So be aware of the Sharia rulings in the Quran and in the Sunnah,
الأحكام محكما
what exists therein,
خصوصا
what's general, what's specific, what's unqualified, what is qualified, was abrogated, not abrogated,
هذا الباب
to the end of it. And also to be someone who is knowledgeable of the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Dr. Abdul Hamid yesterday, he said that one of the most dangerous things that jeopardize fatwa, that many muftis using weak ahadith and not realizing what this could entail if you are too easygoing in accepting a certain hadith. And so the mufti being able to verify what is the actual tradition or sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and its relationship to other rulings, and what can be used for religious rulings and what can be used for general parameters about the spirit of the Sharia and its manners and its ethics. And also that a person is able to perform a qiyas analogy so he can attribute the newly emerging events that the Sharia did not speak about and attribute them or classify them under or in parallel compare them with the issues that the Sharia has spoken about. Of course, the Mufti must be aware of the major rulings of fiqh so that he can compare them with the fatwa that he comes across, so that he does not contradict himself or show that the Sharia or put people under the impression the Sharia contradicts itself. And the list goes on what the scholars placed of guidelines for these fatwa. And so basically, we are building an intellectual aptitude. There's a certain degree of development that a person has to have, a certain train of thought, a certain ability to process information to arrive at a certain conclusion. This will not come out of thin air. After these questions, a question may arise. Is it permissible to take the fatwa of a muqallid? If we say the mufti has to be mujtahid, can we take the fatwa of a muqallid? Considering there are so few muftis nowadays, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid rahimahullah, who said, he said it limits people to stipulate that the fatwa has to come from mujtahid. He said this causes people to be in great hardship to find a mufti that is available for them, that will answer them. So the view we take, Ibn Daqiq al-Eid is saying, is that if the muqallid is ready conveying the fatwa of a mujtahid, then that is fine, because that would make it enough. There would be confidence in the person that this is a traceable ruling back to the Lord of the worlds. Then there are some character traits that we should have. Of them is the issue of just being impartial in justice. And it's enough, so many throughout the Quran, it's enough to say that Allah Azza wa Jal said, O you who believe, be bearers to truth or bearers to justice for the sake of Allah, even if it's against yourselves, and do not be deterred by your hatred of the people from being just. That is closer to piety. There are so many ayat stressing this point, that the truth has the greatest right to be followed, that establishing justice between people is one of the greatest values that lays at the core of God's law. And from there we say that in order to prevent so many of the harms that brew from injustice or an extension of injustice, this should not be overlooked or taken lightly or underestimated. The second condition after justice is for a person to be diligent in their fatwa. So to not give fatwa when they are preoccupied, when they are nervous, when they are
وكأني به صلى
They
الله
are
عليه وسلم
distracted to a point that they can be manipulated. And so the Prophet ﷺ was training
حين
Muftis
أصدر تحذيره
by
المباشر
warning
لمن اختصموا بين يديه بتوقي الحيل التي يحتمل أن ينخدع بها
those who sought judgment with him.
وذلك فيما رواه ابن أبي شيبة
عن ابن أبي شيبة بن أبي سلمة,
عنها قال صلى الله
the
عليه
Prophet ﷺ
وسلم
said,
إنكم تختصمون
you come to me for judgment with your disputes, and I'm a human being, and perhaps some of you can speak better than others.
وإنما أقضي بينكم على نحو
And so I'm going to judge based on what you're saying. And so if I give you the right of your brother, do not take it, for I am just giving you a portion or a share of the fire that he will come being tortured by on the day of judgment. And so the Prophet ﷺ is telling them, don't try to pull a fast one on the Mufti. So he was aware of the fact that people can try to do that.
والله إني لأقضي لك وإني
And he said, oh Abu Abdullah, I judge for you, and I fear that you are a wrongdoer. But I cannot give a ruling based on what I think. I can only give a ruling based on what has been presented to me. But know that my judgment does not make halal for what Allah made haram, nor haram for what Allah made halal.
أن يتفطن إلى أنواع هذه الحيل حتى ولعلكم تتعجبون من ذلك حتى وإن كانت معرفته طرائقها. أنا تخيلت لك تغير لون اللمبة فقلت لك خليها أخضر، أنا ظبطها أخضر أصلا بالأول. يعني he cannot change it. أكرمك الله تعالى. فأقول في مسألة سلامة الذهن واتقاد الفكر أنه على المفتي أن يتفطن إلى أنواع هذه الحيل حتى وإن كانت معرفته طرائقها ووسائلها بمجالسة من لهم بذلك خبرة ودربة من المتخصصين في علم النفس أو المعالجين
people that are experts in these, like for example criminologists, psychologists, they can culture a mufti a great deal on how to identify foul play.
وقد أشار بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم ننتقل بعد ذلك إلى العلم بالواقع.
And then we wish to say, having knowledge of the waqi', of the realities of the context, and we're going to apply these texts to.
يعيش فيها ويفتي بها. وقد أشار أستاذنا الدكتور الطناني إلى هذه المسألة
in his research,
في بحثه بارك الله سبحانه
and Allah
وتعالى
bless him, in his research he spoke about,
الله تعالى أعلم. ثم تأتي المسألة الخامسة وهي مراعاة
said similar to what Sheikh Zuhairi had mentioned, Qarafi rahimahullah used to say, and this is a principle that people must be cognizant of, that when you understand the customs, you realize how many times how wrong some fatwa are. He says, and when people take the fatwa of a previous scholar and place it in a different country where it does not apply, this is in reality a lie about Allah that people make. A widespread mistake, may Allah preserve you, of the widespread mistakes among muftis is some of them exaggerating, going to great lengths to keep people on the safer view, thinking that that is the safer thing to do, or that's going to close the doors to more evils. But if it becomes too tight, people can backlash, and it can have an opposite reaction.
التي حلت بأزمان ليست الآن فقط وإنما أزمان قريبة وبعيدة أيضا أن أتعصب لشيخي فلا قول لأحد إلا قول شيخي
people being overly strict in following their sheikh, being overzealous in defending their sheikh, and people must all follow my sheikh. These are the afflictions of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. And I will not spend much time on this, but keeping in mind the objectives of the Sharia. He mentioned a bit about the maqasid, and so he will suffice in that regard. Except that we wish to say, not realizing the objectives of the Sharia could cause the Sharia to be lost. Then there are certain conditions that our pertinent
وليس من
specialization.
التي نلحظها في أيامنا هذه أن أحضر دورة أو
And so respecting expertise in everything, at a seminar or two, or become a sheikh or a mufti, and we have perhaps fallen into this,
من لا يستحق.
when we find people that do not possess qualifications, certifying people that do not deserve qualification.
بعض مزالق الفتوى ومشكلاتها وذكر في ذلك صدور الفتوى من غير أهلها والتسرع في
And
الفتوى
and also the Sheikh mentions the issue of rushing to give fatwa and being brazen or having no conscience, not being conscientious in your fatwa,
وذكر تبرير الواقع المنحرف
justifying corrupt times with the corruption of the deen. Say words. I'll conclude by saying
ينبغي أن يكون ما يلي والله أعلم. اتحاد المؤسسات الإسلامية حول تعيين قناة خاصة بالفتوى وحظر ما
that the Islamic organizations should consolidate where fatwa comes from. I know this is a suggestion that may end at being a suggestion.
أمر يحتاج إلى إعادة صياغة العقول المفكرة لمستقبل
And
الأمة.
this could be seen as a paralysis of the mind of the ummah. That no, consolidating it is going to stop people from free thinking.
أنا جبت الورق ده معايا، أنا عارفك هتعمل كده من امبارح. حبيبي. بسم الله. قسم ده بيعد علينا الراجل. في وقت بدل ضايع شيخ يوسف. أنا ما بديش، أنا بدي رضاك. خليني في الورقتين اللي أنا كاتبهم وأخلص شغلي. الله يفتح عليك. أعزك. الله يكرمك ويرضى عليك يا رب. إخواننا الكرام، مسألة وجود قناة فضائية خاصة تختص بهذه المسائل.
The issue of there being a specific fatwa channel, satellite channel.
هذا ربما يكون فقط مجرد اقتراح.
And this
لأن اجتماع الأمة
may
بذاته
be suggestion.
إعادة صياغة
Getting all the ummah on one page
التي تدعي
requires
أنها تقود الأمة.
getting all the people who claim to be leaders of the ummah to synchronize.
بين يديه معلم
But at the same time, people
وليس فقط للمجتمع أو للجالية، حتى من ترونه في المؤسسات الإسلامية التي
nowadays believe that there's
كلمتين في عمل سواء كان مهندسا
people
أو
who
كذا
think that because they can say a few words, he thinks he can give a khutbah, give a khutbah altogether.
أوكي. طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولأن القنوات الفضائية الآن مملوكة في أغلبها إلى من ليسوا مهتمين بالشأن الإسلامي بمقدار ما هي وسيلة للتكسب السريع معتمدة على شغف الناس بالله وآفة الفراغ الذهني التي يعانيها المسلمون.
But at the same time, the alternative is having channels of people that need to or sensationalize or market, and so they sell to the crowd and will make them money. And that's going to follow the popular culture and not be dictated by the fatwa culture of our rich tradition.
ثم بعد ذلك الاقتراح
And
الثاني
the second suggestion
الدعاة حول رموز الدعوة والفقه ودعم وحدة المصدر للفتوى
is that the preachers and the mashayikh need to all endorse central entities that can provide the ummah with the best, timeliest fatawa. That requires us to consolidate our resources and all be on the same page so that the people are not left leaderless.
الرسميين في المسائل المصيرية واستطلاع الآراء وفقه المذاهب والرؤى وتدوين هذه المسائل في دوريات جامعة على أن تعد هذه الدوريات مرجعا ثابتا ورأيا يمثل إجماعا عالميا.
One of the suggestions is like what we're doing here now, to have regular seminars
ثم تعليم الناس ألا يتناولوا
and having documentation of these
ثم إصدار بيانات التي تنتج بشكل مباشر على من يقالون في الفتوى
official releases to prevent people that are reckless with fatwa go unnoticed. I ask Allah to forgive me my overstepping my bounds if I did, and may Allah bless us and you.
warahmatullah. Now we'll have a 5-minute presentation from Dr. Qatahani, summarizing his research and commenting on the other work as well.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
عليك السلام.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. جزاك الله خير شيخنا أستاذنا محمد السحيل، وهو أحد أساتذتي في كلية الشريعة في سنة 1991.
MashaAllah. Muhammad Ismail is one of my professors in college in 1991.
علماء الأمة
One of the scholars of the Ummah,
من أهل الفضل
of the people of great virtue. May I ask Allah to bless you and of the greatest favors on us in America.
أن ييسر الله لها
That
العلماء
Allah allow people from these
في هذه الأرض هذه
blessed parts of the world to come and be amongst us, directing our steps.
قوم عند قوم فوائد يا شيخنا.
And so,
شيخنا الأستاذ شيخنا
the hardships of the lands of Syria had a silver lining that was having our Shaykh amongst us here now. My brothers, as was arranged, just 5 minutes to comment on this presentation. And so the lecture was about the conditions for fatwa requirements and the mayhem of fatwa, of giving fatwa in our times.
نعم أحسنت جيد هكذا بارك الله فيك. إخواني وأحبابي في الله عز وجل
Brothers and brothers, we are in a time that many of the misguided fatwa and the misguiding fatwa have come about the presence of social media, Facebook and the likes, and these satellite channels. But as much as there is a bit of anarchy, as much as we are confident that Allah will preserve this religion. Nusat Abdullah al-Mubarak radiyallahu anhu. What do you say regarding the hadith that have been fabricated and forged? And he said Allah has created great discord. Allah has created people to preserve this deen in every age. People that will get together, be united front to respond to this and clarify the religion of Allah and purge its corruption, inshallah, in every sphere. Where have people that deny the sunnah, deny the hadith. This requires unity between the scholars. May Allah unify our ranks for the sake of protecting the religion and rejecting this chaos, because you are the defenders of this religion and you are those who protect the honor of this religion. This is our duty. And our brothers and our sisters, we need to know what causes this fawda, this chaos. Of it is our not being unified, and the scholars not cooperating one with another. This gathering should be more than one time a year, even. And reviews of what is being said. It is impermissible that there be a fatwa that is misguided without the scholars say something about it, have an official response to it, and to clarify those that are misguided and those that are prejudiced, those that are marching with the popular cultures or the oppressive rulers and try to justify that in the name and the language of the religion. So the obligation of the people of knowledge, this duty comes with inheriting from the Prophet ﷺ. The task is the task of the Prophet ﷺ. Their mission is his mission. Brothers, the desires and the egos in our time are so many, whether they're rulers, whether the desires of wealth and materialism. In the past, the job of the fatwa, or the role of fatwa, was to preserve the religion and its sources and its tradition. This is what regulated people's lifestyles and even rulers' lifestyles and decisions, political decisions. The rulers ruled the people and the scholars ruled the rulers.
والملوك حكام على الناس والعلماء حكام وملوك على العلماء والعلماء حكام على الملوك. العلماء كانوا
The
يحكمون
scholars used to
ويحكمون
govern the kings
المجتمعات.
and govern
هذا هو
societies.
دورهم أيها الإخوة.
That is your
هذا
role.
هو دور أهل
This is
العلم.
the role of the
لكن
people of
من
knowledge.
أكبر
But
مصائب
of what
أيها الإخوة
is considered the greatest calamity, truly
من
scholars,
يظن
are those
على
not
هذا
acting
الفتوى
like
يقول هذا
the
من يظن
scholars.
بنفسه أنه من أهل الفتوى وهو
So
لا
people
يحفظ حديثا
that
واحدا عن رسول الله
give fatwa without
دقيقا وبدقة.
memorizing a single hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with accuracy. I was in a lecture a short while back,
موضوع
speaking about the beginning and ends of calendars. While I was speaking to some of the brothers that are going to arrive at a decision at the end of this gathering,
وإذا به يقول
and this person who's going to be part of this decision-making process, he said,
القمر يشرق الهلال. هذا الذي سيأخذ قرارا في أمر
he said the hilal
بين شروقه وغروبه.
will rise.
كيف يكون الشروق وقد قالها صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله لا ينتزع هذا
And the Prophet ﷺ said that this would happen. People,
انتزاعا ولكن
the scholar, the Allah will not remove knowledge by removing it from people's chests, but by removing the scholars who bear it.
اتخذ الناس
Thus He will remove knowledge from the earth. And so they will ask them,
فيضلون ويضلون.
and so they will go astray and lead others astray.
هناك مصيبة
There is a catastrophe that has befallen us,
تقليل
and that is
دور الأئمة والعلماء والفقهاء
marginalizing the roles of the imams and the scholars.
ومن بعض العاملين للإسلام ممن
And
يظن
those who work
أنه
Islam,
قادر
who
على أن
thinks
يتخذ
he is able to make a decision
قرارا
on behalf of
شابه ذلك.
the laws of
السلام
Islam.
عليكم ورحمة الله.
Jazakallahu khairan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Very
Barakallahu feekum wa jazakallahu khair. Presentations have been finished. Now is time for those who have questions, looking for answers. Coming up with the microphone to be discussed. Questions, not buzz. 90 seconds only. I know you guys. Questions. What we're going to do is we're going to go right side, left side, right side, left side. Sister's microphone, same as last night. That's the procedure, inshallah. Need help.
Help is coming.
Microphone on the left.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الرحمن الرحيم.
And just as a review. Green means go. Red means stop. Got it? All right. Pilot, just remind me, 90 seconds, questions, answers, maximum 4 minutes. Maximum 4 minutes.
أولا أريد أن أشكر الدكتور الشجاع الدكتور محمد الزهيري.
Just thank first the brave brothers, really.
فوضى الإفتاء
And I wish to ask about the chaos of fatwa,
خصوصا
particularly
ظاهرة
about the phenomenon has become very widespread,
وعلينا أن نقف ضد لها
and we have to stand against it.
لكن أن
Not just fight for it, but take a firm position against it.
ظاهرة المداخلة لأن هذه بلوى عمت بالمسلمين وخصوصا بالذكر
The issue.
بلاد ليبيا الآن
Of people that are known as Madakhila. In the lands of Libya, for example.
فتوى من هذا الشيخ المزعوم ربيع المدخلي أدى إلى أن أتباعه من الليبيين يحاربون تحت
His followers and Libyans, they defend the secularists in the government.
حفتر ويقتلون
And they
الفقهاء
and kill the scholars
والشيوخ
and the jurists.
وكل من يخالفهم
And all
فهو خارجي.
anyone who differs with them is a rebel, one of the
فنريد
Khawarij.
أولا تعقيب من الدكتور
We ask
سهيل على هذا الأمر.
Mr. Suhaili to comment on this.
أن الفتوى قد تكون حرام
At times the fatwa can be haram.
بعد معرفة المسألة، الثانية بعد معرفة الأحكام الشرعية. وأنا أقول الذي يفتي بالقتل
One who says people that give fatwa about
هذا حرام.
the permissibility of killing
وهذا
a Muslim and isn't Muslim.
الله دكتور
Let me ask Dr. Salah.
الصاوي هل المجمع له موقف
Does
في هذا الأمر أن يتصدر؟
the Majma, the council, have a fatwa on this?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا شك أخي الكريم
So I wish to say to my noble brother
أن ظاهرة الفتوى
of the phenomena of fatwa chaos in 20th century and 21st century, 14th and the Hijri century, is of these dubious personalities which are receive endless financing, endorsement to corrupt or to break between the lines, the ranks of the Muslims. Of course, this is a prevalent issue in many different lands.
هل الفتوى هذه المؤسسة العظيمة
And this fatwa, the institution of fatwa,
هل لها نظام
does it have a system? Does it have
في أي بلد
an
عربي
infrastructure?
إسلامي
Is in any Muslim lands?
ما في نظام المهندسين
So the same way there is
يعتد
a body of engineers, a body of any profession, there has to be a procedural framework for how fatwa is given and when fatwa is given and on what fatwa is given. And that's why 1400 years ago or 1300 years in the second Hijri century,
على الطبيب
a
المفتي الماجن
that a doctor who is incompetent is to be banned from practicing, and the
إذا أي طبيب قام بأي عمل
flagrant sinning scholar, the scholar who is wicked, openly wicked,
قد يكون طبيبا
then he is to be kept from speaking as well,
الطب الآن عدة
to be silenced, to be censored.
إلا الشريعة
And so this exists, you know, the consequences for that exist on every level, in every field, and so it cannot be left on the level of fatwa. Perhaps this is done deliberately by some who want it this way, so that it cannot be an institution that is impactful on the lives and the destinies of communities and countries that want to know God's rulings on the matter, want to know the Sharia of Allah Azza wa Jal.
هذا مرض يا أخي مرض
This is a disease that an injury that we're trying to remedy
فتوى
until this very moment.
التي تعين فيها مفتي عام مفتي لا يوجد إلا الشروط الإدارية فقط أما الشروط العلمية غير موجودة
You know, even on the institution level, there's like a fatwa council that is a government entity. These have administrative procedures, not qualification procedures, right? The government approves it basically.
فوضى بالمناهج في المساجد.
Brother asking about there
أي
being
مدى
chaos in the curriculums in masajid.
المناهج في المساجد أنها تعالج وتواجه قضية الفوضى.
So,
أذكر طريقين. الأول إلى أي مدى هناك ربط بين فقه النص وفقه الواقع. دي نقطة.
people should be educated on the relationship between the understanding of the text and understanding of the context. People need to collectively be elevated to a higher level.
كيف يتم الربط
The second issue is how do we tie between the specialists and the legalists, the fuqaha,
لا توجد
and
منهجية
so
معينة
there is no
لضرب
particular
المنهج
methodology for
الدين
tying between the religion and other sciences.
تعميق ومنهجية.
This requires deep thinking and development, and also tying between the men of the religion, the pastoral personalities, or the fuqaha, the mufti personalities, and between people of specialization in various fields. Said noble brother, there's no doubt that in Islam, masajid have the central role in a Muslim's life.
وأقول باستمرار ليس في أمريكا كان بالعالم.
We're saying not just in America but in the world.
بني مسجد في ماليزيا أو أننا سنسر به أو
We know that if a masjid opens in Malaysia somewhere, it'll bring us great joy. This is a great thing for Allah's religion and for Allah's creation.
وظائف متعددة.
And because we know that the masjid, so much is contingent upon it, so much is supposed to come out of it. Fatwa is one of the things that comes out of the masajid, and so understanding the role of the masajid and dedicating efforts towards that, to develop it, enhance it, to serve the needs of the hour, is certainly important. And so people should know there's nothing shameful about asking specialists any field. And that's why scholars in the past used to say 12, 1300. They used to say, whoever does not know, I do. Whoever does not know the statement, I don't know. Whoever misplaces, I don't know, has made a fatal mistake. That's it. He's on his way out. He'll become ruined and could ruin the people around him. So there are many things about the fast-paced world that are changing and developing and being invented and arising that certainly we're not going to know about them. And so we need to teach people that culture of saying, I don't know, let's find out exactly how this works. That is the solution. People need to understand that Allah's mercy, people to feel, entitled to Allah's mercy by knowing their limits and stopping there. And that it was attributed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, or that he may have said, that those of you most daring to give fatwa are those of you most daring to experience the hellfire. And figuring out a matrix for 20 different kinds of doctors meeting the Mufti, and then 20 different kinds of engineers and the likes. This requires more thought, so that we can be able to get as much access to an understanding of the extensive fields of our very matured, very developed world. We need to, at the very least, know where to go, the limits of each person's or each specialist's field of focus. And then we all collaborate, and we need to collaborate, must continue to collaborate. I mean, there's not a single scholar who doesn't memorize the ayah and collaborate or cooperate in birr and taqwa. Every single sheikh does that. But to internalize that or manifest that is going to be the pivotal step that changes things. He said, I'm a person who's 77 years old. I've been in the Islamic sciences atmosphere for 70 years maybe. Someone just sent me a question from Malaysia about computers. That I just could not get my head around to understand, or I could not remember. And so this is an endless ocean, an ocean of Islamic knowledge, and applying it, and we need to know that. I just wish to advise my brothers in every state or a group of states that its imams come together and appoint the most knowledgeable of them for fatwa, the one most capable, and to be their reference point. their fatawa
ربما يعني إن شاء الله يسهل على كل إمام أن يجيب عليها.
that every imam can answer.
وهي الطهارة والوضوء والصلاة
Comes to
وإلا في
purification and
بعض
prayer
القضايا
and things.
تحتاج
But there are
إلى
certain issues that
اجتماع
require
وأن
the
يكون
gathering of the
الفتوى
people that
الذي
are
استفتى بها أن تكون على
possessing a
قدر
mastery
العلم بها
of Islamic knowledge and fatwa. And that's why we advise that all the brothers to come together and help each other and have someone that they settle with for his opinion.
خاصة إذا كانت في اختصاصه
Uh,
إما في الفرائض أو المواريث
you know,
أو
if
القضايا
someone
الشخصية.
has a certain mastery,
وأيضا التراي ستيت أرياز والمساجد وكذا. نعم.
mastery of inheritance. So they'll say, okay, whatever he says is what we're going to dispense to the people. This is the role of the fiqh assemblies, and some states can do it together.
جزاكم الله خير أستاذنا الدكتور الزحيلي، أستاذنا الدكتور أبو سيف، أستاذنا الدكتور القطناني، أسأل الله أن ينفع بكم جميعا. قضية الفوضى في الإفتاء، هل من الممكن الملح هذه الأيام أن نحاول أن نتحدث
Is it possible now
عن هذه الفوضى
in these days to speak about the roots of this chaos and what can happen in the future,
عفوا الفوضى الأكاديمية، بمعنى
like there being
هناك
academic
جامعات إسلامية
chaos?
للأسف الشديد
There are Islamic
في
universities
هذه البلاد
in this country
تتساهل وتعطي شهادات
that give
بدون حق،
uh,
تتساهل في إعطاء الشهادات.
certifications without due right.
أليس هذا سيكون في
Won't
المستقبل
that
خللاً ليس
cause
فقط
a great fault line and deficiency in calling to Allah's religion and giving fatwa?
قضية إعداد العلماء،
The issue of preparing preachers and preparing scholars.
ألا يجدر بنا أن نتحدث عن
Shouldn't
هذه
we speak about these
القضية،
issues
نتحدث عنها بصوت
and speak
عال
about it with a loud voice
حتى
in every context so that we
من
can
هذه الظاهرة،
pressure people
لأن كثير
or to
كثر هذا الأمر
put pressure on
وعم
this phenomenon from expanding.
أن هذا يعني ونحن نتحدث عن فوضى
When we
الإفتاء،
speak of fawda,
من
of
المناسب
fatwa,
جداً
I think it's very relevant that we speak about
عن
the roots, where this comes from,
الآن وفي المستقبل
and in
كذلك.
the future as well.
جزاكم الله خير.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
عفوا السؤال ثلاثة كل يعني يدلي بدلوه في جزاكم الله خير.
طيب خير. بسم الله. يعني هتتعاقب عقاب واحد، هتيجي تقرا كمان ايتين كمان. عزك الله، رضي الله عنك، بارك الله فيك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عفوا شيخنا بقى استحمل. بداية أخي الكريم، نسأل الله لنا ولكم
So
السلامة
I ask Allah to bless us and you. The certifications that are given students of knowledge are a certification. They could be rightful and they could be wrongful.
أن تكون شهادة الزور.
They are testimonies, you know.
لهم من الله سبحانه
That's why they're called shahada in Arabic, certifications or diplomas. They're called shahadas.
الذين يشهدون الحق لهم من الله تبارك
So
وتعالى.
those who testify in truth, Allah Azza wa Jal, will meet them with His pleasure, and those that do not will have to answer for that.
الذي يزرع نبتة تخرج ثمرة بعد ذلك. من فعل غير هذا فإما أنه سيء الدين وإما أنه سيء العقل، إما أنه غير مدرك للطامة الكبرى التي ستحدث
And
غدا.
those who are easygoing with this sort of thing,
خبيثة، شجرة خبيثة أظلمت الدنيا بها،
that allowing people
عقليا أو إيمانيا،
to
نسأل الله العافية والسلامة ونسأل الله
have weak roots in the Islamic sciences, this is a person that is either lacking in his religious commitment or lacking in his sensibility.
وليس بتخصيصه. فالذي
And we say this
فقط
in general.
ورقة مكتوبة
This is also needs to be carried by the students. There are people that can go to a qualified university
ليس
that
أكثر من ذلك. ثم يتصدى بعد
that
ذلك
offer a great deal of resource, but he is just coming for this paper to become certified.
الله تعالى.
I remember once on Allah knows best, we were sitting
كليات الدراسات الإسلامية والدعوة
some
وكليات الأزهر.
regular exams, term exams. We were sitting there to see if whether these students qualify to be imams or not.
وكنا نحدث نحدث
And
أنفسنا
we're
في كل
telling
صباح
ourselves, talking to each
مع
other
مجموعة من الزملاء
as colleagues every
ننبه
morning.
لها فيما بين أيدينا.
Let's fear Allah Azza wa Jalla and what's
الآن
about to happen,
ربما نحرم امرأة
because
على
we
زوجها
may
بعد سنوات،
do something
أو
now that
نحل الفرج
causes
حراما
a
بعد
woman to be
عدة
haram for her
أشهر،
husband after a
أو
few
نحرم
years,
مالا حلالا على صاحبها،
or
أو نفعل
otherwise,
كذا.
or make someone's money haram for him,
كل
or
صباح
make someone else's
من
money
يذكر
halal for
الله
someone
تبارك وتعالى
without
في
do
هذا
right.
الميدان. فتلك مسألة
And this is something
مهمة.
that
نسأل
needs
الله
to be
تعالى التوفيق
cultivated. It's very
والصفوة.
important.
أعتذر أني
And I'm sorry if I first speaking first between my senior scholars and teachers.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فعلا أخي الكريم
It's true, my brother. The mayhem of fatwa
فوضى الفوضى وموجودة في بعض البلاد.
He said, the chaos of mayhem of fatwa is like the mayhem of the streets, traffic chaos. It needs to be evaluated, and guidelines need to be placed, and penalties need to be instated in more than one country. The favoritism of people that hire or facilitate for their relatives and their social circles to have precedence or immediate access to these stations. And when the Prophet ﷺ says Fatima is the best of the women of the world, if she steals, Muhammad will cut off her hand. Alayhi salatu wassalam. And so most of the Muslim world, much of the corruption is because that lack of conscience exists. 1 minute, I'll just say from my brothers. The issue of being graduated from Sharia universities that are not qualified for preaching, this is everywhere. So many, even our own countries, not just here, because certain organizations allow people to enter for the sake of ulterior motives.
لم يوظف ولا يوظف في الدوائر الا طبعا لا اعني ان كل واحد يوظف معناه مش منيح استغفر الله ولكن الاخ الداعيه الذي كنا نعلم انه فيه الخير يجد صعوبه ان يوظف في
He said that this was even systematically done, that people with a certain spirit in Islam or Islamic law otherwise, they would find a great difficulty in finding a job, and so they were pushed out of these fields.
لهذا أيها الإخوة والأخوات يجب أن نعلم أنه الكليات الشرعية مفتوحة لكل الناس.
And so we need to know the Sharia colleges, even if they have good curriculums, strong curriculums.
هناك تخصصات موجودة في الجامعات للتخريج.
And so it's the role of the scholars to regulate, to censor, to point out who is indeed living up to this responsibility, indeed capable of serving this role, and who is an imposter in this field. And so the Islamic universities, inshallah, there should be a higher board, accreditation board, so that no one graduates except that they have to be agreed upon from this higher board. That would be a great step forward. But as for individual graduation, that will have a certain ceiling in how he's received by the wider communities. And so that those who are being trusted with the fatwa of this ummah are of a safer strand and better caliber, people like you, inshallah ta'ala.
I want to emphasize something for everyone, because we're trying to end on time. We need to end at 9:30, which is 7 minutes from now. So we have time for only 2 more questions, which is going to be this mic and the sisters, inshallah. There is a break from 9:30 to 9:45, and we're staying on time. During that time, if you have questions you did not get a chance to answer, our shuyukh are here. You can come up and speak with them, whether it's in between sessions, during the breaks, whatever, okay?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Your brother in Islam, محمد رمزي, Islamic Center of Detroit, Michigan. جزاكم الله خيرا على المحاضرات السريعة والقيمة. ذكرت أن هناك سيطرة من
Mention
الدول
that their
والحكومات على
government and nation controls.
نحن في
We are in
بلد
America and freelance.
وأغلب الدول العربية والإسلامية
Most of the Islamic lands,
يأخذ بفتوى علمائنا في
people
أمريكا
come and take our fatawa in America through the internet.
العلماء
Alhamdulillah, the
والفقهاء
mashayikh and the scholars,
الإسلامية
so many of them are here. Why don't we
ولا ضغط أي حكومات ولا
have any governmental pressures on us? We have the freedoms to do this.
يصدر قانون
In France,
ما حد يخطب في أي مسجد
will not be allowed to khutbah in any place unless
ويتكلم
he
الفرنسية
speaks French and has a French citizenship and graduated from a French institution.
جزاكم الله خير.
So we should keep in mind or think ahead. This may come to us here in America one day.
بارك الله فيكم. ملاحظة طيبة. طبعا أخي الكريم عندما تحدثنا عن فوضى الإفتاء لم نقصد
Of course, when we speak about the chaos of Fatah, we didn't mean any particular place. So this is happening everywhere.
أمراض
These are illnesses, or like the plagues that could reach some lands and not reach other lands. And so this is just a general diagnosis of what we're seeing in front of us.
الولايات المتحدة لا يوجد فيها فرض وتعيين للمفتيين وفي هذا فهذا طبعا يحسب له ويقدر. نتمنى إن شاء الله
And so here we hope that the religious circles and their separation between the states and their religions prevents some of these things that are happening in France happening here. But at the same time, we prepare for the what if we are one day faced by circumstances and restrictions such as these. Us today, nowadays, the whole world is like a small little village. Anyone who gives fatwa in any place in the world, it's like he's giving fatwa to the entire world through the pages on the internet and just the high connectivity. And that's why those that are giving fatwa on channels and the like, that they fear Allah Azza wa Jal in wherever they may be, and to keep in mind that he's being heard by the world and that his words can have an effect on places he did not intend on speaking about. So he needs to fear Allah Azza wa Jal on that. So the chaos does not just come from America and comes from over there affecting our world here and here affecting their world over there. This is part of the chaos. Us brothers in America, we are giving fatwa for our context. We're not talking for the entire world, or else we will also be contributors to this chaos. Because what concerns us and what affects our interests may not necessarily be the case for people elsewhere. And so it requires a great deal of care and maintenance to ensure it's heading in the right direction at the proper rates. Sisters.
أخواتي تفضل. عندك؟ تفضل. This is the last question, by the way.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
لا أطيل في السؤال. سؤالي كيف نعالج ظاهرة ظاهرة الفوضى في الفتيا مع كثرة الفرق، ونحن نعلم أن كل فرقة تدعي أنها على.
How do we regulate the chaos in fatwa with there being, while there be so many sects that will not agree to be absorbed in one entity?
يا أخي الكريم، هذا الحقيقة يدخل
This falls under a wider subject.
ليس فرق
It may not even be sects per se. It could be a variation in madhahib
اختلاف المذاهب ولذلك
that all fall under the Sunni umbrella.
دعاة اللامذهبية بل أنا من دعاة المذهبية والتمسك بالمذاهب الفقهية لأقصى مداها ولكن قد تصدر فتوى بالمذهب الحنبلي.
He said, I'm not saying that we get rid of the madhahib. I'm definitely not a proponent of that. I'm a firm believer in fatwa.
من حسب وسائل الاتصال المعاصرة فيسمعها الأغلب.
But I give a fatwa on the Hanbali madhab, and someone else living in America who does not subscribe to the Hanbali
ما
madhab.
رأيك في هذه الفتوى؟ سؤال عن المفتي. قلت
And so then someone is asked, what do you think of this
الحنبلي صحيح
fatwa?
خالف بقية المذاهب وليس هو
And so the second sheikh who says, yes, this fatwa is correct. This is according to the Hanbali madhab,
ونصفه خطأ
but it is incorrect according to the other madhab we're upon.
الملل والنحال والمذاهب
And so the multiplicity
ضبطها بسهولة
of views can be regulated to a certain extent by explaining to people that this is the view in that madhab. Yes, that's half correct. But the other half correctness explains to them this is not a matter that is unanimously agreed upon.
المذهب بحيث إذا سمع
So that if he hears someone else,
فنحدد له مصدر الفتوى
he knows exactly where the fatwa came from and in what, I guess, domain of authority, the madhab, yani intellectual authority, it holds weight. That's not necessarily binding on all people in all madhab.
ونبتعد من الأشياء المسمومة والمدسوسة في الفتوى وبقية الأحكام.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
السلام
وبركاته. أخي الكريم بارك الله تعالى لك في سؤالك العميق.
Jazakallah khairan for the deep question.
إنقاذ ما يمكن إنقاذه.
I always try to apply the principle of saving what can be saved.
فعلينا مبدئيا
And so let's gather those that are willing to be gathered, those that have greater commonalities one with another. So Dr. Qahtani said in a while, he said, for example, every group of people in a certain land, a certain state, why can't those get together? And this is of the works of AMJA. And some people said this is AMJA's job. It is AMJA's job. But if a person has been divorced by his wife, I'm not going to busy AMJA with a single divorce case, right? Because this can be solved by two, three scholars in a locality, and it's about putting their heads together. Or there's like a business dispute, financial dispute, otherwise. So just from this vantage point, we can gather many scholars and build great momentum by getting together. Look at the vast number of scholars. Isn't this already getting here in one place in this conference? Isn't that part of consolidating our thoughts, our strategies, our resources, and the opinions we're going to share with others? That's part of it. And then people being educated on a wide level. When I use Facebook,
نقولها عند الموقف الذي يحمل من مكان إلى مكان والآن تضغط بإصبعك فإذا أنت تبلغ مصر أو تبلغ الأردن في أقل من ثانية.
on Facebook, I sometimes I go online. I use the dua of writing onto the writing dua. Subhanallah sakhalana hada when you're writing a mount, because I'm writing, and so I'm being carried to another place. And so we can carry ourselves to each other through these networks.
As I said,
And so that's a way to consolidate as well.
the next session will begin in this room here. If you have questions you were not able to ask, our brothers are available to you, inshallah ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.